Hello, hello, and welcome to the next edition of the CRE News Hour, a weekly podcast coming to you live 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we come to you to discuss current events and everything commercial real estate. My name is Henry Eisenstein. I'm here with my co-host, Rafael Colazzo. How you doing, my friend?
Good, man. Good. And just as a clarification point, it's Collazo. It's a
Collazo.
Yeah, there you go. No, it's Spanish. It's Spanish. The double L in Spanish is yeah. That's a sound. Yeah. So my dad's Puerto Rican.
I'm gonna work on that every week. Okay.
No, dude. No, of course. No. And hey, we both got last names that not everyone can say sometimes. So it's
my running joke is I don't care what you call me, just make sure you call me.
Just say sure you call me. Hey, that's a great line to use when you're talking to sellers, right?
So. Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, during today's show, we're going to be discussing Amazon's new deliveries, short-term and long-term rental markets, interest rates of today, and our thoughts on the fear and uncertainty claims around the commercial real estate future. Because everyone keeps doing these fear-mongering articles that doom and gloom is coming to the commercial real estate world, and obviously so much more. Raphael, where would you like to start today?
Let's get us started in the Amazon category. So this article is one I found. Again, I always reference BizNow. It's probably one of my favorite commercial real estate news outlets. They do have a lot of great content, but one of the articles that I read recently was related to Amazon. Is their plan to restart physical retail grocery expansion in 2024 after a year-long pause. As you may be familiar, I'm not sure if they were having it in New Jersey. I know on the West Coast, they were making a big push to have, the physical grocery stores where you can walk in, pick up different items, and there's almost no checkout. You essentially have an RFID tag on these different, or maybe not even an RFID tag, but they had technology essentially where it would tabulate what you picked up within the store, and then you walk out, and that was going to be the new model for grocery. They decided to take a little bit of a halt on that with all the different expansion that they were making, especially on the logistical side. But they have decided to kind of reinvent the way that they're going to be offering this grocery concept. And now they're going to be pushing forward to try to create new brick and mortar locations. Amazon is roughly 3% of the grocery share market. Obviously the big players, the Krogers, the Walmarts, there's a lot of regional players that are relatively big. I know here locally there's Publix and a few other large grocery store chains that are starting to enter as well. But, they still have a ways to go in the grocery store market. But again, it can be a very lucrative one if you do have your systems in place and, you can scale. So I don't know if you've had any experience with, dealing with any grocery store chains, but, I thought it was just kind of an interesting article to share.
Yeah, I love this. And actually, real quick, before I go into my take, if you guys are watching this live, make sure you guys are also commenting down below if you have any information, any feedback, any thoughts, opinions on or about the articles that we're sharing. So I'd love to get your 2 cents live. So in regards to me, actually in the Newark airport in New Jersey, they actually had a few convenience store-esque kind of locations where it was completely automated, right? There was no cashiers or anything. You basically walk in, you walk out. Pretty sure they had some type of connection to this type of thing because it's literally identical. Very cool. Very, very cool. It was just kind of funny. I was actually watching a YouTube short recently that was about a guy who went into one of these and he was just like, it's funny how they still ask for a tip. It was like, I didn't even see any employees. Like, who am I tipping? But anyways, listen, in regards to the landscape of commercial real estate, I think this is going to be really interesting. I think that over the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, we're going to be seeing the adjustment of this entire landscape when it comes to grocery. Because listen, dude, to be honest with you, what's crazy, I'm curious about you, but I don't go to the grocery store anymore. I literally order on either Uber Eats through that app or through the Amazon app. Why would I go grocery shopping anymore? I don't need to leave my house. I just have it delivered to my front door.
Yeah. So and there's two modes of saying it. I think you're right. I think there are a lot of people who take that mode, but there's some people, as you're coming home from wherever you're going, you can just stop by and grab something and walk out. And so I think one of the biggest frustrations with a lot of these different grocery store chains is, especially during peak times, having to wait in line. There's a lot of wasted time, movement as far as going around the store and everything. So, being able to streamline that process is something that I think, this type of technology could definitely do.
And, I think it's going to affect everything. I think it's going to affect the way retail is done. I think eventually we're going to a world where the Walmarts, the Targets, the Lowe's, the Home Depots, there's not going to be cashiers anymore. There's no reason for it.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
almost, I mean, I don't know the last time, wherever you go, do you go to a cashier or do you go to the self-checkout?
Self-checkout, yeah.
Right?
And again, you look at the QSR space, like quick service restaurant space, they're already doing that. McDonald's already creating these new concepts that don't even have any, servers or, any, even the cook side, they can automate a lot of that process too. So I think it is going to disrupt that industry quite a bit. And from a kind of a takeaway standpoint, we have a lot of brokers that tune into this call. I mean, this is potentially a new opportunity, especially if you're in one of these major metro areas and you have a space that could potentially fit a grocery store tenant. I mean, Amazon's looking, so they've looking like they have a pipeline, a good pipeline for next year, and they're looking to expand. So that, again, keep them on your list because I'm sure there's opportunities out there for those who are looking to capitalize.
Yeah, I mean, and I also think that for me, I think that it's pretty cool to think like what other industries are about to be disrupted. Like I
Mhm.
don't like you were mentioning the other QSRs. I love that. Like there's a lot of like my cousin lives in Oregon. So there's a Dutch Brothers out in
Yeah.
coffee out in there, which has very, very small footprint drive-throughs, very,
Yeah.
very small footprint.
Like 400
And
square feet or 500 square feet. Like it's
tiny. Yeah,
tiny.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And what I think is super cool about this is like this is also allowing for pieces of real estate in main or near main roads or in high traffic areas where you might not be able to get anything else other than a 300 or 400 square foot property and then still be able to put a coffee shop that does 2 million a year in revenue. I mean, it's just ridiculous, to be able to capitalize on this type of stuff where you don't need a huge big box retailer. You don't need a huge location like some Starbucks have. Or some Dunkin' Donuts places have, you go in, it's like 2 or 3 or 4,000 square feet. And you're like, what the heck do you need all the space for?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, now
So
you're seeing in a lot of these markets around the country. Here locally in Louisville, we have a thing called scooters. They're not local to Louisville, but they're kind of regional. And they're literally tiny little box, 500, 600 square foot. They're tilt up. They come in like in a not necessarily a package, but they come in and you tilt them up super quick. You get the drive through in there, and they can take these smaller tracts of land. They don't need necessarily an acre of land. You can fit one of those things on half an acre of land or something else. So even for properties, as long as they're in a good area, high traffic, and you can get access to a major roadway, I mean, that could be an opportunity for you to kind of capitalize as well if you have something of that nature. So
huge opportunity,
all right, next up is annual apartment rents grew in more than half of the 50 biggest U.S. rental markets. So
yeah, thought this was interesting because I think Graham Stephan actually posted something recently where he talked about how the break even right now between owning a house and renting a house is 11 years. Which is wild. So I mean, the only reason why it would make sense to buy a house right now is if you plan on living there for longer than 11 years, then it makes sense with interest rates as high as they are today. And what I find very interesting is like, again, if you're looking at multifamily properties, it's like, something that you and I talk about, it's like shift your geographic to the areas that are growing, right? Shift to the areas like, and if you're targeting multifamily, you might as well target the areas where multifamilies are being supported by high rent and rent it continues to increase instead of focusing on areas that might have rents that are decreasing and rents that are stabilized or or plateaued. It's just like focus on the areas that are growing, and I think that you'll see a much different ability to have value add deals come through the pipeline. And by the way, just wanted to mention real fast, if you guys are watching this live, make sure you guys give this a thumbs up, and you guys can put down any comments or any thoughts, opinions. Leave your 2 cents if you can. Drop it in the comment section. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, that'd be great. And yeah, I agree with you. And even the multifamily sector is kind of interesting right now because there's been a lot of disruption over the last probably year and change. I mean, you've seen a huge run up in investment in the space, particularly in the Sun Belt. So as we kind of talked about with, in Miami, you guys got a lot of new developments popping up here and there. So I'm interested to see how that rental rates play out over the next year and a half, 2 years. But, in the middle of the country, kind of where we're located, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity in the multifamily space because, rental rates have not spiked by 20 to 25%. There hasn't been these massive swings that you're seeing on the coast. So, for those of you guys who are looking at other markets, look at the middle of the country. I really I'm bullish on that because, again, at some point, the money is going to flow inward. And obviously that
100%.
kind of bodes well for that property type. So
yeah. And the same thing for moving, right? Like, I mean, like as
Yeah.
in, people can't afford to live by the coastline. I mean, they're saying like, some areas in New Jersey and Miami, like really along the coastline, I guess, right? I mean, some of the rents are insane.
Hmm.
2-bedroom apartments for, average rent of $4,500. $5,000 average, right? Like, it's not even that big of a place. I mean, it's just it becomes almost unaffordable for the average everyday American. And this is an opportunity for us to be saying like, hey, what local markets should I be targeting that I know that I can go find good deals, right? Follow these trends. I mean, it's really interesting because like as people start trending outward or away from the coastline, as you were saying, I agree with you, right? Like, you can start finding key markets or secondary and tertiary markets that are doing incredibly well.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, it's more so too just being able to be competitive in some of these markets as well. Because when you have these big dollars flowing to these larger markets, sometimes it's hard to really compete. But there are opportunities, other markets that could very well be beneficial. And you kind of advocate for the whole being geographically agnostic. Especially if you're in a smaller market where you may not have the transactional volume to support, whatever income you want to produce. If you can kind of expand your geographic footprint and really tailor your focus on a property type, but focusing it in a region from a regional standpoint, it could be beneficial. So,
Yeah, agreed. I mean, and by the way, Cyber LA, thank you for commenting. Appreciate you very much for tuning in today. I was just saying that the LA City Council just approved rental increases of up to 6% in 2024. Actually, a lot of areas in Jersey are pretty much capped to 2 to 3, maybe 4 or 5% at most, but 6% I haven't heard much of. So I mean, that could be a lot. Obviously, in places like LA where your rent's already $4,000 and you get increased by what is that, 240 bucks.
mhm.
Yeah. So anyways, it's just really, really interesting to see these types of areas starting to get to a place where it's almost unaffordable.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is that it supports new development because the problem is when you constrict what you can actually raise rents to, then obviously that could cause developers to say maybe it's not, you know, affordable for me to consider developing something new. So hopefully, those types of legislations can continue to come down the pike so that, it does support new development for housing, which is obviously we're in a crisis mode almost when it comes to affordable housing. So all right. So next up is Airbnb backed short term rental operator reportedly shutting down. The reason I wanted to share this is because you hear a lot of people online talking about Airbnb arbitrage, where essentially they would go in and rent out apartments in these different buildings and then rent them out on a short term basis or a midterm basis for a spread. This is a big company, a relatively big company that was operating under that mode. They did third party manage for other Airbnb operators, but they were also operating in that arbitrage space, and they actually received funding even from Airbnb and other larger companies as well. And they've raised a total of $150 million. But given the disruption that's occurred in the Airbnb space because of COVID and other factors, they've decided to wind down their operations. And I believe I can see the number here. Up at their peak, they had 5,000 units that they were managing and operating. So, that's a pretty big hole that's created as a result of them just not being able to keep up with the trends that have occurred. So, I don't know if you've seen anything on the Airbnb side. I know I'm sure Miami's a big market for Airbnb. I don't know if you can comment.
Yeah, of course. So places like Airbnb, like where there's a lot of areas where they're limiting the amount of licenses, right? Like they limit the amount of people who actually can apply for licenses, how many people can actually have Airbnbs. And it's like it's freaking mind blowing to me. And places like Miami, where I am at now, I mean, there are hundreds of hotels. Then there's tens of thousands of Airbnbs. It's like there is not like how can you be profitable? I just don't get it. Like it never made sense to me in these areas. Like, listen, if you were one of the first people to come through like this, there was like a wave where you'd be able to make some decent money. But after a little while, like you're not going to be able to have the same profitability as you always had, and you're going to have to provide more value because there's so much development going on, and so many people are adding to or trying to get into the Airbnb space. So everyone's fighting over the same individual coming out. And I just think that, not that it's definitely not a fad. I love the Airbnb model. I think it's unbelievable. I think it's a great opportunity, great business. And if you're, you just need to be cognizant of like where you're doing it, because there's a lot of areas where your margin was once here and it's slowly coming down. And it might not ever, you might never attain those high profitability time over again, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And I think part of it too is that it got to a point where it's a very low barrier to entry. You talk about Airbnb arbitrage. You can rent an apartment. There's almost no risk there outside of just making your monthly rental payment. So you had a flood of these different smaller Airbnbs come into market, which obviously created competition amongst all these different players. But the ones that the individuals that I've seen had a lot of success locally in particular in my Louisville market. I'm sure it's going to be the similar in a lot of markets as well, is they have these big Airbnbs. They'll have the ones that sleep 30 people. And so you can then attract a different clientele because, a hotel can't necessarily afford you the opportunity to stay with all your close friends. Obviously, they can stay in different rooms and they're all kind of disjointed when it comes to the hotel itself. But if you want to go hang out and do a bachelor party or bachelorette party, you're coming in for a wedding party, and you want to stay with a big family, that's something that Airbnb is unique and that can provide. And so, I guess a big takeaway that I've seen just through my interactions with other investors is if you're going to go Airbnb, go big and make sure that you create that unique experience that people come back for time and time again.
Yeah. I mean, listen, again, the Airbnb, just like everything else, the model's always shifting, right? And there's more and more competition. And I think that it's like, you just have to get better. You have to create better experiences, more memorable experiences, right? Like when people are traveling, it's no longer just about having a cool place to live. Now it's like, hey, this also includes jet skis. It also includes a connection to a boat. It also connects to, discounted rates at these restaurants. Like you have to create a full experience now. And it's not just like, hey, I got a 2-bedroom apartment. You want to rent it? Like, it's, it's not like that anymore. So it's just, it's interesting because like, this reminds me of those times where I always want to be innovating, right? Of like, how can I provide more value? How can I provide a higher level of service to the people in my life? And before we go to this next article, I just want to again remind everyone, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. We come to you live each and every single Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you guys are tuning in, you guys can also be sending us deals, or if you want us to review deals, underwrite the deals for you, give you an idea of exactly what we believe the value is, you can send all your deals to deals@CREnewshour.com, and we will in the future episodes be bringing up those deals, underwriting them live, so you guys can kind of get a gauge of where our head's at. So anyways, let's get back to everything. So what do we got here?
All right, let's see it. So we got U.S. inflation eases, Starbucks workers may strike, office attendance edges to new high.
Yeah, so this one talks about how, U.S. inflation, we're finally seemingly like we're just about on the cusp here of getting a curb on inflation. It seems like, right? We're down to a 3.2%. Their goal is 2%. Obviously, we were up to 9 middle of last year, which was obviously quite scary for a lot of people. And obviously, obviously we've all been probably feeling the effects of inflation because, food, like we were just talking about with Amazon and the grocery stores, but everything's gotten incredibly expensive for the average everyday individual. So it's nice to see that inflation's coming down and listen, and honestly, if you look at the interest rates, which I'll flip back over to down below on the banner, we're under 7. We're starting to see under 7, and I think that as long as they can hold on inflation rates, hopefully we'll see a dip in interest rates over the next coming months.
Yeah, no, and that's one thing they're projecting is that I think one of the reasons why interest rates had spiked so much is because lenders out there were concerned about what the policy was going to be for the Fed, so their spreads on the federal funds target rate was pretty significant. And so now that things have started to stabilize and the Fed has kind of indicated that they're going to hold steady as far as their increases are concerned, banks feel more comfortable kind of shrinking the spread. And so, hopefully over, the next 6 months to 12 months, we'll start seeing a tick down in interest rates. And I think that's going to bode well for 2024. I'm obviously, kind of biased, but I'm pretty bullish on 2024. I think it's going to be a very good year. And for those of you guys who are listening, there are better times ahead, as they say. But yeah, I agree. I think the inflation numbers are obviously optimistic. Regarding Starbucks workers may strike. That's an interesting thing. I'm assuming it's because there was wage disputes or.
Yeah, well, there's not only wage disputes, but they were also talking about Red Cup Day, which was like one of the annual days where they give away a bunch of the holiday cups. But it's like apparently one of the days that they have the most staffing issues, issues with people coming in late, not showing up at all. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like I just keep seeing Starbucks in regards to their union all the freaking time. I feel like I keep seeing this, and it keeps coming up and up and up again. Which actually, it's funny. They in the Starbucks part of the article, they were stating that like they haven't shifted. Like they've been trying to get in touch with the union and try to come to some type of conclusion. I think it's at the bottom or some part of it.
Yeah.
They've been trying to get in touch and try to figure this all out for months, and no one's like they're even mentioning that like no one's given them an answer for like 4 or 5 months now. So I don't know what it's all about, but I think it's just something to be paying attention to. You know, a lot of these models, like we we're just talking about, you know, maybe one day you don't even need the staff. You know, you have two baristas versus, 17 people working in the coffee shop.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously unions, that's a touchy subject for a lot of people. I know that they've been in the news as of late. I know here in Louisville, we have a big battery plant that's being created or developed just south of here, and there's contention with the union regarding wages for the client, their staff. And so that's obviously been a big point of contention for us, and it's stopped a lot of production, which is concerning, obviously, on a broader scale. If Ford or their partner decides to shrink their footprint, that could affect the region as well. So,
Sure.
it's just it is a something to always look into for sure when it comes to that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, and also like, listen, if you have friends of yours who own strip centers or have triple net leases with a Starbucks location on it, be cognizant that like, hey, you should be calling up that owner and sending them some of these articles and be like, hey, just letting keep it, you want to be making sure you're paying attention to this type of stuff, because one location could start having trouble and then all of a sudden they're going to close shop. So it might not be as valuable as the property as they're giving it value to.
Absolutely. So next up is a Globe Street article. Obviously, if you guys don't follow Globe Street, I highly encourage you to. They're a phenomenal commercial real estate publication. But kind of this article kind of highlights the fact that commercial real estate lending institutions are starting to show signs of stabilization, which is obviously positive. As you guys have probably noticed, just actively transacting in the marketplace, that the capital markets have been constricting over the last 6 to 12 months. And through my conversations with different lenders, it's just they've been very, very picky about how they're loaning on different deals. In particular, when it comes to new construction, I mean, a lot of lenders have started to kind of pump the brakes on that, and they're really focused on certain types of deals that cash flow from day one. So the article kind of highlights some of the metrics that they've been tracking, CBRE in particular, pertaining to the different debt markets and everything else. And there seems to be optimism pertaining to the fact that the Fed has indicated that they're kind of taking somewhat of a pause on raising interest rates, or raising the Fed funds target rate, which is obviously giving lenders a little bit more, relaxed. They feel a little bit more relaxed about what the future is going to hold. So my hope is that as we continue to expand into 2024, that we'll see the capital markets begin to open up again, and as interest rates begin to drop, transaction volume is going to continue to increase. So
yeah. I mean, listen, this is awesome news. I mean, I think that when things were starting to get a little nuts, the 8% interest and 1.4+% DSCR ratios, it was a little bit of a scary time and a quick moment of like, realistically, it's going to be, unless this deal's a 10 cap, I don't think we're going to get a deal done here. Right. I mean, like there was a moment where like, we're probably going in the wrong direction, but I think that now I feel, like you said, pretty bullish on the future for the commercial real estate market. Like you said, as it shows in the banner down below, we're under 7% interest rates now. If you have really good credit and great history, you're even able to get like 6.5 and a lot more competitive DSCR ratios, a lot less money down. Just a lot more opportunity coming to the market now. I feel like everyone's kind of at at ease. Banks are going like, okay, it's not going to be as bad as we thought. So I think that like this is one of the things I had a chat with my team about 30 days ago, which was double down on the lead gen right now, because a lot of people are terrified and they're going to slow down when realistically you need to speed up and create more opportunities, because like regardless of which way that ticker goes, interest rate wise, I think that this is a good reminder to be like, hey, there's a lot of opportunity right now, and all that, like all, how they were talking about all the debt come and due.
Yeah.
Well, listen, 100%. Like, when debt hits 5% instead of 8%, it's not going to be that freaking bad. Right. Like everyone's going to be just fine. Like a lot of the people are going to be able to refinance and it's not going to be too bad. So I think that it's just, keep your eyes open for the great opportunities, because I don't think it's going to be a bloodbath like everybody thinks it is.
I don't think so either. And I think there's going to be a lot of lenders out there that are willing to work with the property owners, which again, it was not the case in 2008 when liquidity dried up almost entirely. So
yeah, but also like, listen, if interest rates were going to 8%, not plus, or, it was going to be a lot more complicated.
Absolutely. So yeah,
Yeah.
in the meantime, guys, I think, again, if you guys are watching this live, please go ahead and type away in the chat box. We want to hear you guys' engagement. We want to hear you guys' questions. We're going to be, having a Q&A session in the next probably 10 or 15 minutes. And we're really wanting to kind of engage with you all regarding the content you guys want to see. Along with that, if you guys have feedback regarding some of the content that you're reading about or anything else, feel free to share articles, feel free to share deals. I know we had mentioned earlier in the program that you guys can send your deals to our email. And we'll be happy to kind of look at it online. Again, one of the things we were talking about doing is doing deal analysis at the end that would kind of highlight, a particular deal that you guys have out there. Again, we want to be as valuable as possible when it comes to this type of stuff. So.
Yeah, love it. I mean, and speaking of interest rates and everything else going on, this was a great article for us to be paying attention to. So, yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, I thought this was actually interesting because I feel like a little while ago we were talking about how retail was actually one of the leading. This was, I guess, 2 months ago we were looking at this, but retail was doing very, very, very well. And then all of a sudden it slowly started to drop off in certain major markets. So I think it's just, again, something to pay attention to. If you guys are really, focused on the retail markets, it might be a decent opportunity for you guys to possibly start targeting multifamilies, possibly start targeting industrial properties, just to start diversifying just a little bit. I think this is just to give you a hint that there is ups and downs, there's cycles of every single asset class out there, and it's time to ride the wave.
Absolutely. And it's unique in that, you look at this particular graph. October historically is not the greatest month for retail as a whole. I know this is comparing year over year, but November and December, I think, are going to be pretty strong. I mean, they're already projecting. I do a monthly newsletter where I kind of push out different content pertaining to commercial real estate. And one of the data points that I pushed out was related to the National Retail Federation expected that 2023 holiday spending is going to be between 957 billion and 966 billion, which would be about a 3 to 4% increase over 2022. So, I'm interested to see if those numbers come to fruition. I know there's kind of countervailing thought processes pertaining to, what people think is happening as far as like credit card debt and whatever else. So some people are not as bullish on the holiday season. They think that we're not going to necessarily have as big of a year as we did in 2022. And then there's others that are optimistic. So yeah. It's
I'm curious to get your two cents on this, right? So I feel like I'm really bullish on specific types of retail, right?
Sure.
I think that, the grocery anchored strip center chains are not going anywhere, right? Like at least for quite some time. However, I do believe that the smaller retail centers are in for a rude awakening. I think that the smaller strip centers with 2 stores, 4 stores, 8 stores, right? A lot of mom and pop shop type of businesses. I think that they're going to start struggling more than ever with, especially with so much being done online. And I just think that like, as time goes on, with inflation as high as it has been, I think it's just becoming more and more complex and difficult for those people to make profits. I'd rather be putting my money into either much larger retail or just a different asset class. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's some credence to that for sure. I think what it comes down to is retail, and this is one of the reasons I love retail, is because it's so diverse, right? So there's the frame shop, which we all probably agree is probably kind of on its way out when it comes to the viability as a brick and mortar storefront. But then there's also nail salons. And can you do your nails online? No, you can't. Bakeries, you got restaurants, you got tax services, which you can meet with your accountant via Zoom, which is great, or you can meet at a physical location. If there's different medical uses that like to locate in strip centers because of the fact that it's very visible and people can access it quickly. Urgent cares like to be located in those areas as well. So, I agree with you in that there are definitely certain types of retail that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But then there's others that I think could be extremely viable. And then I'm very bullish on retail that's located in great areas. I mean, if you've got a standalone property, you got a drive-through capability, there's going to be people out there and big brands, not just, mom and pop operators. They're going to want to lease that space, and they'll lease it for, 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. And that becomes an asset in and of itself that you can then trade on the market. So, again, there's different types of retail. I'm bullish on some, not so bullish on others, but
Very well
Yeah.
put. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I just think that, as a real estate broker, I think it's important for us to, be able to say like, hey, if I'm great, do retail, love it,
Mhm.
and realize that in secondary and tertiary markets are going to be infinitely more difficult for
Yep.
certain size retail properties versus primary markets, right? You could
Mhm.
have a much smaller 2-store, 3-store, 5-store, 6-store strip center in a primary market that might be, fly off the shelves in a very, very good price per square foot and be very, very difficult to trade a 2 or 3 or 4 store strip center in a secondary or tertiary market.
100%. No,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And obviously that kind of leads up to your point of, just being able to be consistent about, um, the geographic footprint that you're targeting. And if you are in one of these secondary or tertiary markets and you can't support your lifestyle with, just targeting those one types of properties, you do need to expand your footprint a little bit. So
Yeah, 100%. Again, guys, if you guys are tuning in, we appreciate you. We come to you live each and every single Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you guys have any questions, make sure you put in the chat box down below. We actually do a Q&A session with all of the comments. So we will go through each and every single one of them, and we do each and every single week. So make sure you do so. And again, if you have any great deals, you can send all deals to deals@CREnewshour.com.
awesome. So next up is kind of what we'd been talking about a couple of weeks ago regarding the NAR lawsuit. Now you're starting to see new lawsuits crop up that challenge the agent compensation model the way it stands. And so we kind of knew this was inevitable. It kind of set a precedent that now is being pursued in other states. So apparently there's a active lawsuit in South Carolina, New York, and Chicago, I guess, is also pursuing something similar as well. So again, this just kind of highlights some of the different, bullet points of each of the ones that have been filed, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last. And some of these
100%.
have also incorporated some other companies like Compass. I guess EXP is involved in the one in Chicago, and so
Yep.
again, it's
I mean, they're suing everybody. I mean,
yeah.
listen, I mean, I'm talking straight to the attorney for a second. I hope he watches these types of videos. You
Mhm.
like just an absolute ass of a move, just to be super blunt, right? Just like you are absolutely out of your freaking mind trying to target what you're targeting. Like the fact that you're going after quote collusion in this aspect is ridiculous when you're standing to make billions and billions and billions of dollars for this BS stuff, and you're going to make 30 some odd percent. What about the collusion for attorneys nationwide? And I love my attorney. I love my attorneys.
Mhm.
And I've had nothing but fantastic experiences with a lot of my attorneys in my lifetime. However, it's just like for them to come after real estate agents, it's a joke. It's a
Mhm.
freaking joke. And I was just speaking with one of the head chief growth officer, CGO of EXP, and he basically was just laughing at this. Like, what do you think's going to happen? We're going to appeal this to the day is dark. Good luck. Like, and it's not even for, not against the consumer, because again, everything's negotiable. So if you would like a lower commission compensation, negotiate it, right? No problem there. But it's a freaking joke for them to be doing what they're doing, and it's all fear. Stop watching the news. If you're in residential real estate, um, and you're seeing all this type of stuff, stop paying attention to it. However, one big thing I want to mention that I feel like no one's talking about in the real estate world, join an incredibly large brokerage. If you're in the residential world, do not be with a mom and pop shop. Because it's going to be very hard for them to make it through all the lawsuits and stand by, be standing afterwards. Like a lot of them are going to, it's going to be very expensive. I mean, because listen, do I believe that do I really think it's going to be going through and changing the landscape of real estate? Maybe a little bit. But I do believe that if you're a small mom and pop shop residential brokerage with 5 agents, 10 agents, 20 agents, you cannot survive a lawsuit of this size for that long. You just can't. And it's like I think a lot of shops are going to close up, or they're going to be gobbled up by the bigger shops. They're going to be blended in with the Keller Williams, the Remaxes, the EXPs of the world, where they have stickability. Like these companies who have billions of dollars in backing behind them, and they're not really going to go anywhere, no matter what happens. So just food for thought. But I really think it's just don't get wrapped up in the news for this nonsense.
Yeah, and I agree. I think a big part of it is, like you said, they're going to appeal this to the day is dark, right? And it's just going to continue along for a long period of time. I'm just, kind of, I was reading a little bit about the not necessarily the transcripts, but there was another article that talked about the attorney that sued NAR and all these other Keller Williams and whoever was originally in the lawsuit. They described the way that he was, kind of pleading with the jury about the fact that this collusion occurred. And they described how he was like, almost put to tears because of, the way he was describing what was happening. And I was just like, I mean, good for you, I guess.
He's an actor. He's an actor.
No, absolutely. And great. He's a great attorney. Maybe he was able to convince the jury of his peers that this was in fact collusion.
What award is that called? An Emmy? Should we
an
give
Emmy.
This guy?
He won an Emmy. And also, you got to understand, this is a civil suit. So, when you talk about criminal suits, they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this happened. The bar is much lower in the civil suit. So,
he knows exactly what he was doing. He knows. But I just think it's laughable because this is going to be appealed. It's like you're going after major corporations. What do you think's going to happen? They're going to appeal this for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, I don't think he has enough sticking. I don't think that attorney has enough sticking power to make it through his, the next 5 to 10 years without making a penny. Good luck.
Yeah, 100%. No, I can agree more. So we'll go on to the next one. In the meantime, Cyber said apparently all the $1 million listing TV shows have showed off all the money real estate agents are making for doing little work, entertaining shows. So I mean,
yeah, it's like I think it's all $1 million listings fault for showing off how much money they were making.
Yeah, and look at the average agent.
No, exactly. I mean, and it's funny because listen, the $1 million listing is in New York, Miami, LA. Mm-hmm. This happened in what, Missouri?
Yeah.
How much do you think an average agent is making in Missouri? 30 grand?
Yeah, maybe
$25,000. It's like, what you're targeting the wrong people.
100%. I couldn't agree more. So next up is a Wall Street Journal article, which unfortunately I don't know if I can.
Okay, hold on. I did this on purpose because I think there was a I didn't know if it was going to be able to show up or not, but basically this was just talking about the fear around everyone talking about how the commercial real estate industry, clear sign the commercial real estate is in trouble. How many freaking articles are we going to see that commercial real estate is in trouble? The debt's coming due. The debt's coming due. The debt's coming. Like all these mortgage loan maturity dates are coming due. You know how many freaking articles we must be seeing? This gets posted and reposted and reposted. It's a bunch of freaking nonsense. Because the amount of properties that are 100%, there's billions of dollars in maturity dates coming due. That's fact. Okay. But what is also fact is that large majority of them are either super financially okay, not going to have an issue, or the bank's going to work with them. Like you had mentioned before, Raphael, right? They're not going anywhere. There is a percentage of the billions of dollars over the next coming years of loans that are coming due, which, by the way, loan maturity dates come due all the time. We just haven't been hearing about it because interest rates have been somewhat normal, right? So it's just, I think that I'm just sick and tired of the doom and gloom and the BS and the fear that they're trying to instill for eyeballs because I think it's bullshit.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I haven't seen, everyone's talking about distress. I haven't seen any distress. I mean, it is really laughable that people who aren't necessarily in the market themselves and actually seeing what's going on day to day can make these kind of blanket statements when it comes to what they think is going to happen. I mean, this 100%. Is all, I agree. I think a lot of it is speculation. And I do think that lenders are much more liquid now than they were in 2008. And a big reason why they were having to take foreclose on the property was because they had to recoup the money so that they could maintain liquidity in their coffer.
Very different time today.
And so, the bank doesn't want to own real estate. I mean, the bank is not in the business of owning real estate. So if it can avoid doing that, it can work through whatever the struggle is for the operator, and they can see a path forward, they're going to do that. And if they have the liquidity to be able to do that, that's going to be their first option. So
yeah. And by the way, if you're watching this live with us, put in the comment section down below, what is your thoughts, your opinion on 2024? Do you think it's going to be a good year? Give us a thumbs up. If you think it's going to be a bad year for real estate, give us a thumbs down. Do you think good, bad? I'm curious to get some facts. Again, if you think it's going to be a good year, give it a thumbs up. Give the video a thumbs up. If you think it's going to be a bad year, give it a thumbs up as well. But I think that, again, I'm pretty damn bullish of the real estate market. I think I'm not kidding you. Out of the thousands of deals that we see through my team over the last, even through the beginning of this year. Okay. Over the thousands and thousands of deals we've underwritten, Okay. One deal that I've actually, that we have actually is going through a maturity issue where like they have a loan that is coming due. The tenants, the credit tenant's leaving, and they're going to have a real problem. Right? Like one out of thousands of deals that we've been underwriting. So I can't see, I don't see what they're seeing, and I think it's all BS. And
well, I think what again, what you're seeing is the big number, right? You see this big number, you see 10 billion or whatever the number is each at the end of 2025 is going to come to maturity, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, they kind of create this speculation in their mind about what could happen during when 2025 hits. So they're not really looking more granularly to what that actually means. Like, what is the 10 billion? How is it broken up? Where is it? Where are these loan maturities located? What's the actual underlying financials of these operators? Is the bank in a position to be able to work it out with them? They don't look at that. They just look at a big number, and it's coming due in 2025. And
and if I could give anybody just some piece of quick thoughts on this, right, of like actionable steps. If you go to Reonomy and you go to CoStar, you can literally sort by loan maturity. Okay. What you're going to notice, and what I'd even recommend, is that you leave a large majority of it alone, because it's not going to go anywhere. These people don't have actually that big of a problem. But what you do find is the mom and pop owners who own one property. If they have one or two properties, okay, mom and pop owners, they own one or two properties, and they bought the property something in the vicinity of within the last 10 years or so, okay? Because if they owned it 30 years ago, they probably don't have that much debt on it anyways. So who cares if the loan's coming due? It's probably not going to be that big of a deal, okay? But if they bought the property in the last 10 years, okay, and they have a loan maturity date coming up, okay, and they only own one or two properties, that might be a decent opportunity for you to find for someone who might need to sell, okay? Other than that, which is, again, a percentage of a percentage, there's a lot of people who are going to be just fine.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So, well, all right, guys. I know you guys are watched. For those of you guys who are watching, feel free to type away in the chat box. We want to hear you guys engage. You guys have any questions you'd like us to ask or answer, I should say. If you guys have any deals you guys are working on that you guys want us to review or talk about, happy to do that as well. Really looking forward to adding as much value as we can during this hour.
And again, guys, if you guys have been tuning in live, remember, we come to you live each and every single Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to give you guys the real, the raw, our 2 cents on what's going on in the commercial real estate market. So make sure that you guys tune in each and every single week to see what's going on in the real estate world. And again, like Raphael just mentioned, if you guys have questions, if you guys have comments, if you have some opinions on any of the articles that we review today or anything that's going on in the real estate world, please comment down below, and we'd love to have an open discussion.
So you kind of mentioned some of the underwriting that you've been doing recently. I mean, have you started to see a sentiment on the seller side about being more willing to work with, you guys to try to, dispose of a property, or is it still are sellers still pretty firm as far as what they're looking for?
I think that it's been about par for the entire year. I really have not seen any crazy direction in it, either way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's really been pretty steady for the entire year, and I think that like it really is not like we're not going to see this huge fall off, like, because I'm not seeing that people are like screaming and running and trying to hide like in 2008 where everyone was like, everything hit the fan, right? It's just it's not the same, right? Yeah. So what actually was interesting, heard in a video that I think it was 60 or 80, maybe 80%, okay? 80% of all loans are under 4% interest.
80, all 80. Oh, including residential, or
yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
80+% of all loans out there right now are under 4% interest, because everyone in the world, everybody in America refinanced their properties. This is why the debt markets exploded. If you're a lender in the last, from 2020 to 2021, 2022, you made a fortune, and good for you. You were in the right place at the right time, right? Same thing with real estate agents. A lot of people made a lot of money. However, we're starting to, the reason why there's not a lot of loans going on right now is because nobody's refinancing, clearly, right? And then a lot less purchases are occurring, right? So it's just like, there's not going to have this crazy issue like everybody thought. I just don't see it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it also kind of goes to show the the importance of being regulating the income that you get over time as well. So like, obviously we're in a sales business, so you could do a lot of things to be able to control the lead generation that you have, but over time there are going to be situations sometimes where you are not producing as much in one year than you were in the previous year, and so being able to manage that money as you go forward in your career is going to be very important, because otherwise you go out there and you ball it out, which is great because it's America, you can do what you want, capitalism's awesome, but then at the end of the day, if you can't sustain yourself in the long term, then obviously it doesn't benefit you. So
yeah, I agree 100%. I think that this is also like in those years you crush it. Like if you make 10 or 20 or 30% more than you have in the past in a certain year, save your money and invest your money right away.
Yeah.
Right.
Smart.
Save it, invest it, get, make it worth your while, because if like, again, you've only been like, you're consistent at 100 grand, you make 150 or two for the first time, take that extra 50 or 100 from a grace of God and throw it into something as an investment, because there are still some people who obviously are making more and more money every single year. If you can keep your expenses at bay and you can take all that extra money and throw it into real estate, you'll eventually won't even need to sell real estate to make money. Yeah. Right. By the way, if you want to shout out Bill.
Oh yeah, of course. So Bill, he says, thank you for everything that you guys do. So much value being given away for free. Thanks, Bill. I mean, that's the reason we do it. We really do it to try to help the commercial real estate community at large. There isn't a whole lot of resources out there. There's a lot more than when I'm sure you started, Henry. You started well before I did. And even 4 years ago when I started, there really wasn't any type of content that was really supporting the commercial real estate landscape. So hoping to just continue to contribute in the best way we know how. So
100%. We appreciate the kind words, my friend. Thank you for tuning in. And listen, again, for those of you guys who are watching and you guys from all over the country, maybe even all over the world, make sure also you guys are leaving some details in regards to yourself, because I'd love to know where our audience is from. So like, Bill, where are you tuning in from? Cyber LA? Obviously it seems like you're from LA, I'd imagine, but I'm curious to understand like where our community is from. Like where are you guys tuning in from? If you guys could put that in the chat of where you're tuning in from, because listen, the cool part about commercial real estate, which is unlike the residential world, is that we are about collaboration, baby. Right. Mm-hmm. The more people that we know, the more people we can put in our networks, right, of people who are finding deals from all over the country, we can all make money. Right. And the checks are much, are definitely sizable enough where we can all make a good amount of money where everybody's happy about it. But if you guys have fantastic deals, by the way, you guys can always send that over to deals@CREnewshour.com. This way we can underwrite your deals, because one of the cool things about this is that, obviously Raphael and myself have a number of investors that we work with, always looking for product all over the country. So if you guys come across any good deals of any asset class across the country, across the US, we'd love to be able to support you in making some more money this year. So make sure you guys send that over.
Definitely. And I'll speak to the co-brokering side that you had kind of mentioned regarding, commercial real estate almost without borders when it comes to where we're at. I mean, just through the podcasting stuff that I've done and on the YouTube side, I've actually been approached and engaged from people outside my own market, and we're actively co-brokering different deals for different people outside of the market. So, it's amazing what can be done when you kind of let people know that you do what you do, and eventually you can work with
100%. And by the way, guys, listen, like every Friday I go live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time across all my social media platforms to show you guys cold calling, just to show you that it is possible to, wherever you are in the country, you guys can get on the phones, you guys can make stuff happen. So you guys make sure that you guys are tuning in. It's every Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do that as well. Bill, you said you're out of Orlando, Florida. Thank you and welcome for tuning in, or thank you for tuning in. We appreciate that. Cyber LA from Los Angeles, the West Side, and wanted to make sure we specify. Mm-hmm. And Bill, we do agree with you. Co-brokering is the way to go. Obviously, like, listen, I'm a huge fan of being direct to seller. By the way, I don't know if we want to rip on this for 2 seconds, but
yeah, please.
When people come to me and they're like, listen, I have a deal, but it's through another broker who actually connected with another broker, I think it's a load of shit. Just to be frank, right? Like, I think it's a complete waste of time. Like, I think being direct to seller is where the fortune is made in this business. However, that doesn't mean that I can be direct to seller and I can work with somebody who I trust, right? Like if Raphael is direct to seller and he finds a great deal, like I have a guy who's looking for self-storage facility. So if he happens to have a self-storage facility, like a mom and pop self-storage facility, we could do some business. However, when you're dealing with individuals where hypothetically, like they're like wholesalers, or like they're just like trying to, stick their nose where it doesn't belong, right? And then all of a sudden you got an agent through another agent to get to the seller. nobody's going to make any money because now you're playing telephone 3 times over. And it's an impossible game of nonsense. So that's why I do the cold calling. And obviously I know it's a little bit early for the PST people, 10 a.m. EST is 7 a.m. PST. But I think that it's important to know that, like, listen, throw me in your headphones and at least I can show you guys how to make some cold calls.
You guys work out in the morning, pop it in while you guys are working out. I'm telling you, it's worth the value. I'm telling you.
100%. So. Well, listen, if you guys have any questions, make sure you put in the comment section below. We're going to be wrapping up in just a few minutes. We would definitely love to be able to support you in any way possible.
Definitely.
What else are you working on these days, my man?
Me, got a lot moving. It's just trying to get stuff done before the end of the year, especially, you got like a small window of time before, Thanksgiving. And then afterwards you got another couple weeks, and then, lenders start going away, and, it's just really hard to get stuff done unless you really need to get something done before December 31st, right when you start getting into Christmas. So we got a lot of active deals right now. I've got a big developer client we're working with to try to lock down some sites. Got a lot of tenant rep assignments that I'm working through right now. I just picked up another tenant rep assignment for 2 24-hour fitness facilities. So we're going to be looking in 2024 for them. Got a couple triple net investment opportunities that I'm looking at for one of my buddies, one being in Ohio, which we kind of talked offline about a little bit. And then, just trying to keep up with everything. It's been good.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, listen, for those of you guys who are trying to make some money before the end of the year, listen, there's like maybe 2 or 3 working weeks left. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you guys can't make something happen within that time frame, I mean, it's going to be like everything's going to be closing in January, February, March of next year, right? You're going into Q1. So I think it's a point of just like, you got to move your tail, try to find some good opportunities, and know that, like, listen, basically just about almost any deal you have right now is probably not closing this year. So hopefully you saved up enough cash, to make it through to Q1 of next year.
Yeah. And it kind of goes to show that, when everyone is taking a step back in the holidays, it's a great opportunity for you to configure your strategy and then also hit the ground running hard, so that come January, February, March, you kind of blow out of a cannon. So, really take this time to really be strategic about how you want to approach 2024. And I would even wager to say double down in December and then January in particular, to really make sure you set up your yourself for a great.
I'm actually also hosting a business goal setting and business strategies, business planning for 2024. I'm hosting that on December 15th. So love for you guys to tune in if you guys want to learn how to set massive goals and how to make sure you achieve them. December 15th, you guys can make sure you tune in. I'll have a lot of more information posted across all my platforms. Love to see you guys there. You guys, if you want to read that off.
Yeah. So I was able to figure out how to do this. So
cool.
Will you continue to cold call in December?
Listen, I will continue to cold call 6-7 days a week, every week for the rest of my life. Right. 100% I will.
Bro, that's awesome. I mean, I'm telling you, and those are the times where people like that mentality where it's like, look, I'm going to do it until they put me in the ground. I'm just going to keep going. People start tailing off in December because, again, it's the end of the year. Holidays are coming up. So if you can kind of stand out at the end of the year, again, it's going to set you up for a great 2024. So I love that.
I mean, my average age is making between 400 and 800 calls a day, every day. And we've been doing that, since the team's begun years ago to, every day through it. Right. Like, I don't care if it's, by the way, even on holidays, my team calls. I want you to understand. I want to be Thanksgiving week and Christmas week. Yes. Like, even I want you to understand something. What we do differently is that every single day throughout the holidays, the only thing that changes on Thanksgiving Day or Christmas Day, right? Because obviously they can choose to call or not. The only difference is, like, I still prospect on those days. And what I'll do differently is that I reach out to my VIP clients. So instead of cold calling per se, I will reach out to my VIP list, which is almost 100 people, my favorite people in my life, people who've referred me the most business every year. I will reach out to them on those holidays, and I send them 100. I do 100 video messages between 8 and 11 o'clock in the morning. The entire rest of the day I don't have to work, but they're hit. I'm hitting that list. It's a different level of a different way of prospecting. It's not specifically cold calling. And by the way, it says weekends. No weekends though. Yes, weekends. We also cold call on weekends. Because I don't know about you, but people will be open to selling properties on weekends or weekdays. The week does not end for people who are not in corporate America.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So if we don't, any other questions before we wrap up?
I think this is a great discussion. So,
I love it.
obviously we thank you guys so much for tuning in. For those of you guys who are still on, I mean, we have plenty of people on various different platforms. We stream live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it. We're pushing live every single Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We obviously appreciate everything you guys do on a day-to-day. Just feel free to reach out to us, share your deals, as we had mentioned before. Would love to be able to underwrite some deals live on the show. Feel free to send them at deals@crenewshour.com. And we're looking forward to continuing this on every single week.
Yeah, I guess without further ado, again, if you guys have not liked and or subscribed to the channels or follow us on the channels that you're following us on currently live, we would appreciate you doing so. It really does help out the algorithm. And we will see everybody next week.
Absolutely. And before we hop off real quick, congratulations to Henry. He just hit 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. A great accomplishment. Really excited for you, man. And
thank you, brother.
Again, please go subscribe to his channel. If you guys get a chance to subscribe to mine as well, that'd be awesome as well. So thanks again so much for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week.
See ya.